inverse composite functions. In today's lesson, we will be looking at inverse composite functions. Some of the skills that you need to know are to be able to rearrange an equation, able to find the inverse of a simple function, which we'll be looking at, and then able to find the inverse of a complex function where x appears twice. So again, composite functions in general are a higher level topic. Also, inverse functions is even harder than normal composite function questions. So again, this is like a grade 8 or 9 at GCSE, and it comes at the end of your paper. So the questions, you can expect them to be quite difficult. So let's just have a little bit of kind of a background about what inverse functions actually mean. So we've got f of x equals, now, sorry, let's write that down properly. F of x equals, let's write that again, equals 3x minus 2. Sometimes I don't like the way the laptop writes the x. Okay, right. So this function here actually means that when you have x, you have to times it by 3, well, whatever your input is, isn't it? So whatever x is, you've got to times it by 3, and then you have to subtract 2. Yeah, that is your function. Now, the inverse function is actually the opposite, okay? So that's the opposite of it. So you're starting off with your function, and what would you do? So obviously I'm going to start here. So we're going to go backwards, yeah, because obviously that's your starting point now. So your inverse function is, rather than subtracting 2, you would add 2. And then rather than timesing by 3, you would divide by 3. And then obviously you are left with your, output function. Now, I could rewrite that in a different way. I could write that as x plus 2, then divided by 3. You're doing the opposite. So inverse function actually means the opposite. Okay, you are doing the opposite. Now, it's always written as f of minus 1 of x. So when you see that, you know that is asking you to work out the inverse. Okay. Now, you can do it this way, which is functions, which is quite simple and easy, like I showed you. You can say we're starting off with x, but then you're going to times by 3, and then you're going to subtract 2, and then you just do the opposite on the other side. But this method won't work all the time, because you might end up with some more difficult questions, and for those questions you are going to have to use the algebraic method, which is to do with rearranging. So it's entirely up to you which method you're going to do. I'm going to focus on the method that's to do with rearranging, as that works all the time. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples. So number 1, let's have a look. So I'm going to say f of x equals 3x squared minus 8. Okay, the first thing that you need to do, there are 3 different rules to this. You need to make the equation equal to y. So y equals 3x squared minus 8. First step, make your equation equal to y. Okay, so let's write that down. Make equation equal, try and zoom out a little bit, equal to y. Right, number 2, what you need to do is rearrange to x equals. I need to rearrange this equation to make it x equals, okay? So this is where your rearranging skills come in. I'm going to do y plus 8 equals 3x squared. Yep. Oh, and then I'm going to get rid of the 3. So I'm going to divide by 3, aren't I? So y plus 8, divide that by 3. I'm left with x squared. Well, how do I get rid of x squared? It's y plus 8 divided by 3, and the square root of it equals x. Okay, right, I've done that. Now, your third step is to then replace x with f1 of x and y with x. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to do the inverse function is the square root of x plus 8 all over 3, and that's it. Okay, and you can see that, can't you? So look, rather than subtracting 8, I'm going to add 8 to my function, and then I'm going to divide it by 3, and then I'm going to do the square roots. It's like you're undoing the equation, you're doing the opposite, okay? So again, this method works well with the most complicated ones out there, so we're going to stick to this one. You could do the function method if you want to. Right, so these are the 3 rules here that I'm just going to highlight. Okay, and you can remember this. Okay, let's have a look at another example then. We're going to do as many as we can, just so you get the gist of it. You can follow this with me if you want to do so, if you find it easier. So I'm going to do f of x equals 2x plus 3 all over 5, and I'm going to say find f minus 1 of x. That means the inverse. Okay, so remember, first step is make it equal to y. So y equals 2x plus 3 all over 5. Right, your second step is to rearrange to make x equals. So I'm going to times by 5. So 5y equals 2x plus 3. Oh, I can subtract 3 now. So 5y minus 3 equals 2x. Oh, I need to get rid of the 2 now. So 5y minus 3 divided by 2 equals x. Right, your final step. I'm going to just switch the order a little bit. So I'll do that first so you don't get confused. Okay, so we like it like that, don't we? So it's x equals. Replace the f minus 1 of x with f minus 1 of x. That's in the inverse. And replace the y with x. So I've got 5x minus 3 all over 2. And there you are. And you can see you're doing the opposite. Yeah, that was my equation to start off with. Rather than dividing by 5, I'm timesing by 5. Rather than adding 3, I'm subtracting 3. Rather than timesing by 2, I'm dividing by 2. Okay. Right, another example. Let's move on this way this time. Number 3. What about if you have something like this? F of x equals x plus 5 all over 2x minus 3. Okay, so remember, start off, replace your f, find f minus 1 of x first. So replace that, so y equals x plus 5 over 2x minus 3. Now rearrange to get x equals. Now this is a tricky bit because look, we've got an x at the top and an x at the bottom. We didn't really have that in this example, did we? Just 2x plus 3. The first example, we didn't have that either. It was just 3x squared minus 8, but we've got more than one x here. So that's where you actually need to use this method. Because the other method gets quite complicated. So if you kind of stick to one method, it might help you out a bit more. So let's have a look where this takes us. I'm going to get rid of the 2x minus 3. So remember, it's divide by 2x minus 3. So I'm going to do y times 2x minus 3 equals x plus 5. Right, times everything out. So I've got 2xy minus 3y equals x plus 5. Right, okay, so remember, your second step is actually, we've done the first step here, which was make y equals. Your second step is rearrange to get x equals. And remember, sometimes you might have to write this down in the exam to make you actually focus and think, actually, what am I doing? Because it's getting too complicated. I need to make x equals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the x's all on one side. So I'm going to bring that x on the other side. So I've got 2xy minus 3y minus x equals 5. Well, this doesn't have an x with it, so let's get rid of that on the other side. So 2xy minus x, minus x equals 5 plus 3y. Okay. So now, well, this is the bit that you need to remember what to do. I just want x equals. Now, how can I eliminate or take out x or just have x on its own? Well, I can factorize. So I'm going to factorize. Inside that becomes 2y and that will become minus 1 equals 5 plus 3y. Right, so now I can get rid of this bracket because it doesn't have an x with it. I'm not interested with it. So rather than, that means times by 2y minus 1. So I've got to divide both sides by 2y minus 1. Can do it like this if that makes it easier for you. But that cancels, doesn't it? So x equals 5 plus 3y over 2y minus 1. Replace the x with f minus 1 of x, and then replace the y with x. Okay, and there you are. Okay, so it is tricky, isn't it? Let's have a look at another example like this, okay, because it is quite tricky. Okay, what example are we on? We're on question 4. Right, let's do another one like this, okay? So we've got f of x equals 6 minus 3x all over 4x plus 1. Right, remember, make it y equals first. 6 minus 3x over 4x plus 1. Now we are rearranging to get x equals. So I'm going to times by the 4x plus 1 because it's at the bottom at the moment. Equals 6 minus 3x. Well, multiply the bracket out, otherwise we can't do anything with it. So 4xy plus y equals 6 minus 3x. Now bring the x's all on one side, so I'm going to bring the 3x on the other side. So 4xy plus y plus 3x equals 6. Well, that actually doesn't have an x with it, so we can't have it there. So let's get rid of it. So 4xy plus 3x equals 6 minus y. Right, we just want to know what x is, so we can factorize, take an x out. 4y plus 3 equals 6 minus y. Well, the 4y plus 3 doesn't have an x with it, so we can't have that there. So we need to get rid of it. So we're going to divide both sides by 4y plus 3. Divide by 4y plus 3. That goes, so I'm left with x equals 6 minus y over 4y plus 3. And there you are. Now that's not your final answer. So remember, I need to change the x into f minus 1 of x. That means it's the inverse. And replace the y with x. And there you are. That is your final answer. Okay. Right, let's have a look at something a bit more different, okay? And see what other types of questions you might be asked. Right. Slightly tricky questions. Let's have a look at that. So number 1, something different. So let's say that we'll go a bit easy first to start off with. Let's say f of x equals minus x minus 8 all over 8. And your question might say find f minus 1 of 8. Right. When you have something like this, well, first of all, f minus 1, they want you to work out the inverse. So let's deal with that first. Y equals minus x minus 8 over 8. I made it y equals. Now, rearrange to get x equals. So I've got 8y equals minus x minus 8. Okay, I'm going to bring this minus x on the other side because I want it to be positive x. So I've got 8y plus x equals minus 8. Now I can get rid of the 8y. X equals minus 8 plus 8y. So that's my inverse function because now I'm going to replace the x with f of minus 1 of x equals minus 8 plus 8x. Okay, so that's your inverse. But the question said find f minus 1 of 8. So remember, the x is replaced with the 8. That means x is actually 8. So we need to substitute that in. So we've got minus 8 plus, well, 8 times 8, haven't we? So let's do that then. So we have got minus 8 plus, well, 8 times 8 is 64, isn't it? So minus 8 add 64 is 56, and that is your answer. So they have asked you to use more than one skill here. They've asked you to use your knowledge of finding the inverse first, and they've asked you to go one step further by substituting. And we've looked at that in a previous lesson that I've recorded for you to do with composite functions. So have a look at that if you don't understand this bit. Let's have a look at another question like this then and see what we can do with it. So let's have a look. Let's do question 2. Let's do h of x this time equals minus 2x plus 9 all over x minus 1. And then I want to find h minus 1 of 3. So first of all, let's find the inverse. So make it y equals. So y equals minus 2x plus 9 all over x minus 1. So remember, let's times the x minus 1 up. So I've got y times x minus 1 equals minus 2x plus 9. Multiply it out because I can't do anything with it if it's not times out. So I've got yx minus y equals minus 2x plus 9. I bring the x's on one side, so I'm going to get rid of that one first. So yx minus y plus 2x equals 9. This doesn't have an x with it, so it can't stay there. So let's get rid of it. Yx plus 2x equals 9, add y. Factorize, remember when you've got x's in two places, factorize. So x and then y plus 2 inside the bracket. How do I get rid of the bracket there? Well, I need to divide, don't I? So I'm going to divide by y plus 2. Okay, that cancels. So I've got x equals 9 plus y over y plus 2. Now you have to write this final bit in the exam to get your mark. That means it's the inverse function. Oops, don't like the x when it's written like that. F of x equals 9 plus x over x plus 2. Now, that's not your answer. You're only going to get some of the marks for that. To get your other answer, you need to substitute your x in for 3. So, oops, and there's a problem here because I thought it was the f function. It's not, it's h. So I need to do 9 plus 3 over 3 plus 2. Well, 9 plus 3, 9, 10, 11, 12. And 3 plus 2 is 3, 4, 5. Well, can I do 12 divided by 5? I could do and write my answer as a decimal if I wanted to, which is 2.4. Or I could write my answer as a mixed number, 2 and 2/5. Any of these three would be absolutely fine. Okay, just depends. You can leave it as 12/5 as well. Let's do one final one before we end our session. This was example number 2. Let's do an example number 3. So we are going to do, let's do g of x equals, sort the x out, g of x equals 4 over x plus 3. And we are finding g minus 1 of 1. Right, let's work out the inverse first. So y equals 4 over x, add 3. Now, rearrange, remember, to get x equals. So y minus 3 equals 4 over x. A problem here, we've got divide by x, we need to times by x. So x times y minus 3 equals 4. Well, expand the bracket because we can't do anything with it. xy minus 3, x equals 4. Oh, we've got a problem there, actually. We don't need this step, do we? Because watch, we can just get rid of that. So sometimes you might actually start to do something because you're so programmed into thinking this is what you do. Let's expand a bracket, or factorize, but you might not need to do that. I could just get rid of this bracket, actually. Can't I? By dividing it. Get rid of that. So we've got x equals 4 over y minus 3. Remember, this time our function is g of x, so that's going to be g minus 1 of x. That's the inverse, equals 4 over x minus 3. Now, we need g minus 1 of 1, so we need to replace the x with 1. So 4 over 1 minus 3. Okay, 4 stays at the top. Now, 1 minus 1 subtract 3 actually is minus 2. Now, I can do 4 divided by minus 2. The answer is minus 2. And there we are. Okay, so that's how you work out inverse functions in maths. And obviously, you can get trickier questions asked, okay, where you might have to do some more tricky questions. Let's have a look at one last one actually before we leave. Let's do one that's a little bit more tricky. So I'm going to zoom out and then get into a fresh page. Okay, let's do f of x equals, now I've got the square root of minus x minus 10 all over 10, and we're just going to work out the inverse. Okay, so first of all, we've got to make it y equals minus x, oops, it's in the bracket, isn't it? Minus x minus 10 all over 10. Well, how do you get rid of a square root? You need to square it. So y squared equals minus x minus 10 all over 10. Well, we need to make it x equals. So I'm just going to write that down as a remembering it. Sometimes because there's so many steps. Oops. Sometimes the laptop does some strange things. X equals, just going to put a little bubble around that to remember. So I've got 10y squared equals minus x, oops, minus 10. Right, I don't want minus x, I want positive x. I'm going to take that on the other side. 10y squared plus x minus 10. Okay. So now I'm going to get rid of the 10y squared. I've got x equals, sorry, that should be an equals there, shouldn't it? Equals minus 10. So x equals minus 10 minus 10y squared. So remember now, I need to replace that. What we've got, what's my function? Is it function of f? So I'm going to do f minus 1 of x equals minus 10, and then remember replace the x with, replace the y with x, and that is your inverse function. Okay, so again, different type of questions there that we've covered in today's lesson. Some are more tricky than others. So I've shown you how to work out the inverse. Remember, there are 3 steps. First of all, you need to make equation y equals, then you need to rearrange to get it equal to x equals, and then you need to replace obviously the x with either f minus 1 or g minus 1 or whatever your function is, and then replace the y with the x. So these are 3 different steps that you need to memorize to be able to find out the inverse functions. I hope this was useful for you. Thank you for listening and watching.